Hey, everybody, welcome to Ronline Report. Today's guest, you know him very well. He is IFBB Hall of Fame pro bodybuilder. Geez, so many other things I could go on and on about, but you know him, you love him, you can't live without him. Shawn Ray.
How are you, Shawn? What's going on, Big Ron? Just getting ready for this year's Mr. Olympia contest. It seems like we're always on a perpetual countdown to the Olympia.
Yeah, I mean, the countdown starts the day after the Olympia ends for the next year.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about what happened over the weekend. We lost one of the greats, someone I knew a little bit. I wish I'd known him better, but so many people, an outpouring of grief and of memories. And John Meadows passed away, and I don't know how well you knew him, but even if you didn't know him, you liked the guy. He was so likable, such a fantastic human being. How well did you know John?
I didn't know him well. I had breakfast with him 2 weeks before he passed. I was on my way to catch my flight out of Atlanta, Georgia, following the Chicago Pro. Came downstairs and he was sitting by himself at about 6:30 in the morning. I had an early morning flight, so we sat together. We exchanged some pleasantries and went down memory lane. I knew that he was the trainer for Missy Triscott for the Fitness Olympia, and we picked each other's brains a little bit. I've met him a few times in passing, but I didn't know him. I just knew he was a trainer. But on this occasion, there was no one in the room. It was just he and I having breakfast, and we ate for about 45 minutes until it was time for me to leave. And I knew that he had some health issues prior, and I talked to him about those issues. He felt like he was in a very good space. Very excited about Missy's defense of the Olympia Fitness title. And of course, it's never the right time to pass away. We hear these things and we're shocked. Doesn't matter how old they are. I didn't know John's history. I mean, it's funny how you come to know someone in their passing. I learned much more about him dead than he was alive, because he was doing things at a different era, right? I don't really follow the trainers, so to speak, but I knew his fingerprints were on a lot of guys. I knew that he worked with Shawn Clarita. And when you go through the social media, you see the outpouring of all the people that he touched. And I mean, he was a man's man. He did not like people that felt they were above others, talking down to people. He felt like one of those guys that if he can give you a hand up, it's better than trying to give you a hand out. So I know that he was very impressionable on the sport of bodybuilding. I was privileged that day to spend those 45 minutes over breakfast talking about the all-time greats in bodybuilding and how impressionable these young guys are coming up, getting ready for the Olympia. So it was all about the Olympia. It's still a shock that someone that you were in close proximity can be taken away and leave that big hole in everybody else's economy. It shows you that you got to live every day like it's your last.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I ate before you guys, and I think I was leaving as you guys were just starting to eat. I think I remember seeing you in the restaurant there in the hotel. But it was a sudden thing. I know that because he was posting up until the day before. He had just put out another video. He was very selfless. You know, he made a living as a coach and as an educator, but he put out so much free information for people.
Free is the operative word.
100% free. You know, that's a rarity in any industry, but ours especially. So yeah, you know, rest in peace, John. My heart goes out to his wife Mary and his twin boys. They're fairly young. It's you know, just another reminder that any day can be your last, and you really have to live every day as if it could be your last.
I mean, it reminds you, you know, you have to celebrate the life, right? We can bury our head in the sand and feel sorry for ourselves that someone has been taken away from us. But when that happens, you know, our days are numbered at birth. This wasn't an accident. God has a plan for John, and the things that the people he's touched, we've got to reshape, refocus the direction of how we see life and how we live it. But I know that he emptied himself out into a lot of athletes that if they're any kind of way feeling off a little bit, then they got to rechannel that and just continue the journey, because that's what John was doing. He was giving back. He was pouring himself into all these athletes. And I wouldn't want any of those athletes to stop the path that they're on, because John wants them to finish the race. So as tragic as it is, you got to remember to celebrate the life. And truly, in watching the videos, I saw one by, what's the guy's name? Nick Andro, the guy that makes those videos, Nick Andro Vision or something.
Oh yeah. Right.
He did a really good one. Shawn Clarita just put out a very good tribute to John. I mean, again, sometimes you don't know how important somebody is until they're gone. And unfortunately, it's very few of us celebrate the person while they're here.
Right.
Just another life's lesson, but may he rest in peace and condolences to his family.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just another reminder because I had seen him at that show and I've talked to him many times. We're on very good terms. And I at least once, and I think twice that weekend, I meant to go over and say hi, but I was in a rush. I was like, I'll catch him later. I'll catch him next. I'll see him tomorrow. I'll see him at the next show. And you never know if you're going to see anybody again.
It's life. Yeah, that's how it works.
So rest in peace, John. Let's talk about some good news. You are now the face of Mutant Nutrition, which is, you've been retired for how long now? 20 years?
20 years this September. Yeah.
So it's pretty rare that somebody can be retired for 20 years and still be so relevant in the vital part of the industry that a major supplement company would want them to be their main spokesperson, the face of the company. So tell me how it all started. How did that all come together?
Well, for my haters, it's a magic trick. It's a con job.
Yeah.
But in going back and forth with the owner, Jim McMahon, and working with Ian and several of the people up there, up in Vancouver, Canada, and talking, this wasn't an overnight decision. This was a marathon of conversation and meetings and collaboration and some synchronicity and timing as well. Working with and via different supplement companies throughout the decades. This is not something, I'm not an overnight guy here. I worked with companies including Joe Weider's Victory Line back in the day, and I work with Biotech Nutritionals and Betancourt Nutrition. And of course, I'm really good friends with Gaspari and Labrada. I know something about the supplement industry, but what I did in bodybuilding is I built up a nice portfolio of relationships, and I kept a big database of contacts. And of course, staying in the game of bodybuilding, wanting to give back in certain ways, we came to a mutual agreement that was mutually beneficial on a global scale, that they would get certain deliverables from Shawn Ray and I would get certain compensation from them. And I said when I did my press release that this is, it's a small step for me, but it's a big step for the industry, because my whole motivation at my age now is to not only, be rewarded for my body of work, because I worked hard to get here, but also find a way to give it back, because you can't take it with you. And so through Mutant, we're going to be creating a lot of different things that are advantageous to bodybuilders coming up, looking for an opportunity. I'm in a very unique position of traveling to these shows. I can see this talent coming up through the ranks, and I can reward that talent. They give me a rope. I have the ability to become a cowboy with that rope. And so while there's some haters out there that don't feel a retired bodybuilder should even have a sponsorship, let alone an endorsement deal, because there's others out there that are doing the job of bodybuilding and standing on the stage. There's a big difference in standing on stage, competing for yourself, for selfish reasons and prize money. There's another thing when you're trying to spread the wealth and build a brand and be a spokesperson and be able to be a representative of a company as big as Mutant. So this is not something that happened overnight. This is where bodybuilding has led somebody like myself. I've always said in bodybuilding, I have a PhD, a master's MBA. I'm a graduate from the hard knocks of bodybuilding. I've walked the walk and talked the talk. So I didn't talk my way into a position at Mutant. I've got work ahead of me that's going to entail a lot of support. And there's going to be a lot of athletes that are going to be mutually beneficial because of my knowledge of the sport of bodybuilding and the opportunities that I will be able to help create for them, working with a company as big as Mutant. So I'm lucky to be on a VIP team. This is not all about Shawn Ray, although I'm here. This is now a time for me to prove to not only the company, but also give to the athletes opportunities that were afforded me back in the late 80s, early 90s, and they kind of evaporated after that.
Yeah. Well, the minute this comes out, your DMs are going to explode. Everyone's going to want, everybody wants
free product.
Yeah.
No, well, everybody wants a contract. Yeah.
They want a contract. Everyone, it's not like the old days when there were a lot of contracts.
Well, mind you, it's in sometimes in the old days you had to earn it. Like, I didn't get a contract until I did something of worth, but it's more than winning a contest, Ron. As you get older, you realize that there are people that are willing to work hard and some that are willing to work harder. And then there's the other ones that are just feeling entitled. Yeah. Having a title doesn't mean that a company is going to come and give you money or product. Right. In the day of social media and digital marketing and the street hustle, there are people out there that don't take to the stage that have better sponsorship deals than people that have titles.
Right.
You cannot get a sponsorship because you have a pretty face. This is not a TNA business here. that I'm working for, and having a bunch of likes and followers doesn't necessarily warrant us throwing product or even revenue your direction. So having been there and lived through the Joe Weider era and working for different companies on how they market and how they brand, I know through trial and error what's expected of me as an athlete, whether I'm competing or when I'm not competing. That's a good thing for them because I know what it was like competing, and I also know what it's like sponsoring athletes, giving out endorsements, promoting and marketing. These athletes, while we want to help them, it's give and take. There's no free ride.
Right.
We don't have an endless supply of money or supplements. So one of the analogies that we drew as a company was we need to date each other before we can get married. And so that dating process is passed, and now we are married. And so I look at this vehicle as something of my own. I have to protect it. I have to nurture it, and I also have to help it make it grow. So I'm looking for talented individuals that want to work hard, those that are working hard on the stage, those are working hard at their social media, those are working hard at being good people. Those are the type of people you want to plant the seeds in and then watch them grow. So I'm looking on the national level, the state level, and of course on the pro level for people that can work not only with me, but work separate from me, that would be good ambassadors for the sport. So I have taken on a different role in this company. That's not just about Shawn Ray and Shawn Ray Productions. This is about building the brand. That's a whole nother level of responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, you are one of the busiest guys in the industry. You're doing that. You're the online editor for Digital Muscle.
Correct.
You work for Wings. Your resume, I can't even rattle it all off the top of my head, but you've never worked for just one company as long as I've known you. You've always been on your grind, on your hustle, and
yeah.
Talk about guys.
I mean, I think there's people that work because they're passionate, and then there's people that work because they're chasing the dollar bill. What did they say? They say if you love what you do, you never really work a day in your life. And I think you're right along there with me in a different capacity. The difference for me is I have a Hall of Fame pedigree competing on the stage, so I know the level of discipline and also had the ability to be one of the elites, and then come out on the other side. But all throughout my competitive career, I was working for, representing, dealing with companies, product. Shawn Ray Productions started in 1987 when I won the national championships. Who knew that I would become a producer of a professional and an amateur competition, running shows over in Hawaii, muscle camps around the world, representing different products. I mean, as an athlete, just like the basketball players and football players, you can win the titles and sit at home and wait for the season to come and do your contracts, or you can market yourself as a product and a brand. And so I'm many things to many different entities that I have to deliver. They don't give me money because I'm a pretty face. And what they give me, I try to plant seeds in other directions so I can continue the momentum and continue the growth. I'm working with Mr. Tortilla, which is a tortilla company. I work with the Fascia Blaster, which is a fascia blasting machine apparatus that helps break up the fascia. Of course, I work with Mutant. I'm the editor-in-chief on Digital Muscle, which is where I write articles. I do summaries of competitions. I do previews of competition, personality profiles. Where are they now? And again, I do the commentating for the Mr. Olympia competition. And I'm a consultant for the Olympia. I don't work for Wings of Strength, but I'm a consultant for the Olympia year round. I'm constantly promoting the Olympia brand. It's what I grew up doing. And so finding a way to work for companies that you actually offer value, you'll always have an opportunity to make a living. And I've done that. I've been a valuable asset to different entities for different reasons. And none of them are grandfathered in to last forever. So there's things that slide and change. They're here in season this time and they're gone next year. Being a master of ceremonies of all the bodybuilding shows around the country and around the world puts me in opportunities to meet different companies and different businesses. I work with an equipment company called Real Leader, where we distribute equipment all around the world, which means I'm a salesman. I'm an endorser, but I'm also selling equipment. So that's part of my passion. I built my body and my brand off of lifting weights. And so I know a thing or two about good equipment. And of course, I know a lot of gym owners. I know a lot of people that want gym equipment. So why not be in the gym equipment business? I know a thing or two about promoting shows. So I got my Shawn Ray Hawaiian Classic November the 20th, and we just added the Classic Pro division. So I have a Pro-Am now, and I'm working with a partner, Dr. Morales, who's an actual official sponsor of the Olympia, a card-carrying member of the IFBB Pro League, and now he's a certifiable contest promoter in Hawaii. And did I mention he's a husband, a father, and a plastic surgeon? So I align myself with people that are diversified, but are hungry and also helping to make things better. You know, I like to stay diversified. It gets me out of bed.
Yeah. Now I'm going to put you on the spot for a little review of the Tampa show because you were there, and
Yes.
you know, you and I are kind of a similar position, but I think you're more blunt and direct in both your praise and your critiques at times.
Okay.
And not everyone can deal with that. Some people get very butthurt.
But I know.
If you insult their favorite, well, it's not insulting. You're just calling it like you see it. But you know, and anytime you have a close competition, nobody's happy. You know, you got the Ian fans were very happy for him. The Phil Clahar fans, they're very upset he didn't win. The Max Charles fans very upset that Max didn't win. And you can keep going on down the line. Just let's talk about Open just for a second. Ian versus Phil. I thought it was a heck of a matchup. And Phil came out of, this is a guy that was getting, you know, third call out 2 weeks before that Chicago Pro.
I was there.
Yeah, 11th place. To go from that to almost winning the Tampa Pro 2 weeks later against the heavy favorite Ian Valliere. What an accomplishment. 47 years old. Not only that, I talked to him and his wife, Patty, and they've just recently taken custody of 3 of their grandchildren. So they got three young kids at home while he's prepping for contests, training clients, doing all that. How did you see that matchup between Ian and Phil?
Yeah, I actually had Phil winning the competition on numerous levels. Ian has a nice structure. Calves are a little bit slight and very long, kind of like big Ramis. They're a little long. They're not very wide. So they disappear after those big quadriceps because he's got very nice quads. From the side, his side leg looks a lot more impressive because there's more meat on the hamstring, but Phil's conditioning. I was there when he was in the bathroom after he got 11th, I believe it was at the Chicago Pro. And he says, what do I got to do? I said, well, listen, man, wait till you watch the videos. Wait till you look at the pictures. I don't know what to tell you, but I'll tell you, you're headed in the right direction. And when I saw him 2 weeks later, I mean, he's a winner. That was a win for me, looking at him going, this is not the same bodybuilder. He was aggressive. He was hungry. I told him to tone down the aggression a little bit on stage because he didn't have to be. I just think he was so amped up. He was so hyped up and so happy. But he gets mega points on the conditioning. I told him he has to watch his midsection. He's got some issues in between poses with his midsection, but it was ripped. It was there. It was dialed in. Where Ian lost some points with me was that there wasn't a huge jump from the previous year when he took second to Hunter Labrada. I believe it was Tampa. Still a little bit watery, a little bit soft, very Jay Cutler-ish in structure. But he just didn't. It looked mushy. It looked soft. He was sweating profusely after the prejudging, or during the prejudging when he came out. Once Steve put him through the rounds, before they came out at the very end, he literally was toweling himself off the entire time his color was running. So there was a lot of the water and that movement of just constantly wiping off the sweat tells you he wasn't where he needed to be. He was headed in the right direction, but on the day he wasn't where he needed to be. Whereas Phil, there was nothing else I thought Phil needed to do on that day to be in the winner's circle, and no one should complain. So big ups to him for getting second and pushing him. But going into the contest, he knew that he was up against Ian. Ian just didn't deliver the knockout punch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, play devil's advocate for a second. Why do you think Ian won?
Well, Ian's got a structure that's a little bit more superior than the others. I said he's very Jay Cutler-ish, and Jay's got 4 Olympia titles. He's got 3 Arnold Classic titles. It's hard not to miss Ian in the lineup when he's actually posing. When he's standing there, he's a lot more soft. You can see, especially from the rear, there's a lot of mushiness. It's not, and the glutes are very Dave Palumbo-ish. A little bit too big for my liking. The shorts are a little bit too far up the crack. And if you're going to do that, you got to have the glutes to go with it. You just didn't have the glutes. So those were distractions of a my trained eye that, like, you're watery and you're a little bit smooth. And when you pose, it's not popping. Whereas Phil came out there and was like, wow, and boom, and like, bam. And you saw the change, the physical change in those 2 weeks. Whereas we didn't have a chance to preview Ian. We knew Ian was an Olympian. We knew Ian was on the odds-on favorite. And so we're expecting something more from last year. It just didn't get delivered on that day.
Yeah. It's it could have gone either way. I don't think many people would have complained. I mean, I didn't hear a chorus of boos when Ian won, and I don't think we would have heard a chorus of boos if Phil had won. They were very, very good in their own ways. Yeah. Ian's condition definitely could have been better, but structurally he's so wide. Those shoulders are so big. It's just a lot. It's overwhelming. Max Charles, he was actually down 4th. It was Charles Griffin.
Yeah.
What does Max need to do? Because he's got to be so frustrated at this point, Max.
No, I think there was nothing he could have done on that day. Listen, he's a little bit thick in the lower back area. It's a little bit thick and a little bit watery. The hamstrings are a little bit slight. They always have been. But he's just very consistently slightly off. And that doesn't bode well when the judges see you more than once a year. Like, you've got to start getting better, or someone like Griffin can slide up in there who's smaller, more compact, William Bonac-like with the size on the arms and the quadriceps. And, you can get caught. You can get caught like that. Griffin's a good little bodybuilder. Max is competing a little bit more than he probably wants to. He's really trying to get to that Olympia on points. And it can be disheartening when here's a third place, here's a fourth place. And what do I need to do? And what do I got to do? Max is not a spring chicken. I would imagine that Max has got to be 40-ish.
He's 44.
Yeah. So the improvements are going to be harder to come by, especially the more you're competing. The good thing he has going for him is hopefully that if he's going to go into the next competition, he'll be even more tighter. Some guys, they flatten out and they get smoother. Max doesn't have anything to hang his head down, because Griffin was very impressive when he came out. We didn't see him coming. But when he got out there and he actually started posing, we saw things on Griffin we just didn't see on Charles, because he couldn't make it pop. He didn't have the pop factor.
Yeah. I mean, Griffin's got so much muscle. He really does remind me of a taller version of Bonac.
Yeah.
So even down to kind of like the short torso, the structure, but just so much muscle packed onto that frame.
Let me tell you something. He tightens up a little bit more, and I had him and Ian kind of battling it out, because I had Phil. Phil was my winner. Yeah. I think if that guy comes in a little bit tighter, he is like the next William Bonac, and we've seen what William Bonac can do with guys like Big Brahmi and even Brandon Curry, for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Former 212 guy. Who would have thought? So we just have 2 more shows this weekend. We have the Texas Pro in Irving, Texas, outside of Dallas, and the Europa Pro in Alicante, Spain. And so one person's going to win in Texas and qualify, and then top 2 qualify from Spain. So,
well, you don't know. I mean, I believe Ian's on the record as going to Texas.
Yeah, he's going to
Phil.
So's Phil. He's going.
Yeah, and so is Steve Kuklo. There's an X factor there as well. So I know Ian wants to beat this Steve Kuklo just to kind of put him in his rearview mirror. But Steve has the ability to take him out as well and get his trip back to the Mr. Olympia competition. Some guys get better after victory and other guys don't. If Ian sucks it up because he was clearly off, if he really tightens everything up, he's going to have to look better in Texas. If he's satisfied with winning and already getting a free pass to Olympia, somebody like Kuklo can come in there and beat him. And Phil, is it Phil from Texas? Not that it matters.
Florida.
Yeah, well, not that it matters. I mean, Phil, if we saw what he did in 2 weeks' time, what happens if he stays the course in Texas because he really wants to get there? He's capable.
Yeah, he's actually Jamaican. He's the Jamaican Tank.
Okay.
He's been in Florida for many years, I think.
Yeah, he did the business.
And then Spain. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you get to Alicante, Spain, and it's a mixed bag of nuts. I mean, listen, Rolly could probably get a win over there, which doesn't say a whole lot for him going back to the Olympia because he was so far off 2 weeks ago. The question would be, is he able to suck it up? But in that show over in Europe, I mean, we don't know what's going to come out of that competition, or who's going to do what. I mean, Rolly on paper has a name, but he was so far off that I don't even know that you can call him a front runner in Alicante. I
mean, you got Nathan Dasha making his comeback.
Yeah, and he's been off for a hot minute, so that's an X factor. We don't know what to expect from Nathan. I don't know if he's gotten better or worse due to COVID and all the legal problems that he had. So there's a big question mark on which Nathan's going to actually show up. We haven't seen a good Nathan in a couple of years.
Right. So let's start talking Olympia. It's 7 weeks.
No, you're skipping the Arnold Classic.
Oh, I thought you only want to talk about the Olympia. I didn't know. Nah.
No, we got to get up to the Arnold because that's okay. Like a big deal. At the end of the day, I still think there's some question marks there. If I'm Hunter Labrada, I'm in that show. I mean, listen, the paycheck is nice and the title is even better. I don't think that Hunter Labrada has that on his radar, but he's going to have to meet these guys along the way on that Olympia stage. So if I'm him, you're only this age once. He's going to be in great shape sitting at home watching somebody take away that prize money, whether it's first, second, or third. But if it's me, I'd want to do the business at the Arnold. One, to get a title that my father never won, right? And two, to cement the idea that I'm going into the Olympia to break into the top 6. Like if he can take out Ian at that show, if he can beat Sergio Oliva if he jumps in that show, if he could beat Nick Walker, who will be there, forget about the payday and the prestige, but whoever wins that Arnold Classic is going to be in the conversation of breaking into that top 5 of the Olympia. And that's a big friggin' deal, because why would you allow an able-bodied person like either Ian or Steve Kuklo, Sergio Oliva Jr., or Nick Walker go there if you're Hunter Labrada, and you sit at home and watch this happen? I wouldn't be able to do it. I know he's got a job. I know he's got a kid. I know he's got his plans. But if I'm in his head and I'm his Hall of Fame father, Lee Labrada, I'm saying, look, we'll get to the Olympia, but let's take this Arnold Classic right now. And then that even cements it even further. Because if you're not doing the Arnold Classic and you're Hunter Labrada, it's a guessing game, right? You're trying to figure out where you're at on this contest preparation. It's early. It's what are we, mid-August?
Yeah.
The Arnold Classic is 2 weeks before the Mr. Olympia.
Yep.
If I'm 2 weeks before that Mr. Olympia, that $130,000 that Arnold Classic title sounds pretty good. These are guys that I will see on the Olympia stage. So if I can take them out now, that gives me a head start going into the Olympia. And now all I got to wait for is William Bonek maybe at the Arnold, but now you're waiting on Brandon Curry and Big Ramy. But get that feather in your hat, get that confidence out of the way, and get some money in the bank for the efforts. Hunter, jump in that show. This would be the new guys Olympia, right? Like, I would love to see that happen. Let's say it doesn't happen. It's not a shoe-in that William Bonek goes in there and walks away with the title with the way these new guys are looking, because the judges are familiar with them. We're very familiar with William Bonek, and he could be a victim of his own success. It's happened to myself. It's happened to Dexter Jackson. It's happened to a lot of short bodybuilders that kind of max out on what they can actually do. We're not going to be surprised when we see William Bonek. We're going to see probably a very similar William Bonek to what we've seen in the past. Definitely. But seeing an improved Hunter Labrada, seeing a dried out Ian Valier, how do you say his last name? Valier. Yeah. Seeing somebody like Phil come along, seeing Steve Kuklo. These guys can show us something that we haven't yet seen, because they're dialing it down for that Olympia. And it would be very interesting to see if one of these new guys win that Arnold Classic. I just don't want anybody sitting at home watching it happen.
Well, here's the thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Arnold is invitational, and they set their competitor list far ahead of the show. I don't even know if Hunter could get into the Arnold if he wanted to. Maybe he could. I don't know the process, but I don't know if it's not like.
Well, let me tell you, I don't think they turn it away.
No,
Hunter's a very big name. I would have loved to seen somebody like Patrick Moore jump in that contest as well. There's a few guys sitting on the sidelines letting this thing go by that could be in there, but the show's going to be interesting nonetheless. I believe this is the 33rd Arnold Classic. We missed no, it didn't miss last year. So it would be, I think, the 34th Arnold Classic, if I'm not mistaken. Started in 1989. I'll be there nonetheless. And of course, once that show is concluded, it's a sprint to frickin' Orlando. And this is, again, it's in a bigger venue than it was last year.
Oh, really?
Expo. Yeah, the Expo's coming back. Last year we had a fan pavilion. This year we're having the Olympia Expo. It's legit. So it's all systems go right now to Orlando. So if you haven't got your tickets, you got to get them now. And of course, the host hotels and surrounding hotels, I'm sure they're going to sell out. A lot of sponsors are coming back. We've got Kaspari back on the platform. We have Labrada back on the platform, bringing in Lee Haney to do some expert commentary along with those two guys.
Oh, wow.
Mindy O'Brien, the Hall of Famer from Canada, is coming back. She'll be working in the mic on some of that stuff. And Robin Maher from Salt Lake City, Utah. So we got a very good pay-per-view crew coming in this year with some very different opinions. And I'm excited to get there. What is this? This is the 57th Olympia. And this, I believe, will be my 34th consecutive.
Wow. So it's not the same venue as last year. Is that what you're telling me?
No, the contest is being moved to a different hall, a bigger hall. So last year's, I think, held 5,200. This one's holding, I think, nearly 10,000.
Wow. But is it in that same complex?
Same. Yeah, because that Orange County convention is massive. Yeah. It's not that far. In terms of logistics, it's going to be in a very similar area. And they also have the stage inside the actual Expo like they did in Las Vegas. So there's a stage there taking place. Yeah. It's a big deal.
The pavilion last year was nice that we had something, but it wasn't a true Expo. So I'm very glad.
We're definitely back. And I'd be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to Jim Mannion for winning the Ben Weider Lifetime Achievement Award. He wasn't there, but Dan Solomon did a very good job showcasing the fact that many people through the underneath the umbrella of Jim Mannion's passion of creating and starting the NPC National Physique Committee, and then creating the IFBB Pro League, many have gone on to build careers, lives, lifestyles, and raise families and become contest promoters and have a life because of Jim's passion. Jim's the next thing beneath someone like a Joe Weider who's always been in this game. And without him, so many of us wouldn't be doing what we're doing. And Dan eloquently spoke in Jim's absence while J.M. Mannion was there and Tyler Mannion was there about why he was so deserving of the recognition of the Ben Weider Lifetime Achievement Award. So big ups to Jim Mannion. And of course, we'll see him this year. He wasn't there last year, but we'll see him this year.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dan did point out, he said, a lot of you in this audience, whether you're coaches, athletes, journalists, whatever, you probably wouldn't be doing what you're doing right now if it wasn't for Jim Mannion. That's 100% true.
I think it resonated with a lot of people as we listened to that because, we take it for granted, right? Like we think we work hard and we deserve all of these things, but we're walking in the shadow of people that had a vision that provided the shade for us to, stand underneath. I mean, Joe and Ben Weider, they're the ones that kind of like laid the foundation, but without Jim Mannion and the NPC, where would Joe and Ben have been able to build this thing to? So now we're worldwide with the NPC. I mean, you got the grandson as the IFBB vice president and the intricacies of building a brand that's global like the NPC and in providing Lee Haney with the show, Shawn Ray with the show, Lee Labrada had a show last weekend, Linda Murray has a show, Steve Kuklo, Branch Warren. Do I need to keep going? How many athletes have been able to have
Jay Cutler?
Jay Cutler's got 3 or 4 shows out there. I mean, so those shows provide other athletes a platform to come up and do what we once did. Right. And you take Jim Mannion out of the equation, man, it's like pulling apart some of the DNA from the human body. We have a different being altogether.
Yeah. So the 2 question marks for Olympia, and one's not much of a question mark. Is Phil Heath competing? Is Kai Green competing? Let's start with Phil, because Phil is he's dropping little hints here and there on his social media. Little sly, snide remarks, little clues. Dan, I asked Dan, is he competing? And Dan says, as far as I know, I haven't heard anything. And he's the promoter of the show. He would know. But as an Olympia champion, Phil doesn't need to qualify, obviously. I don't know what the deadline is for contracts. Is it like a month out from the show? When is it?
Yeah, it's typically now. Like you have a few guys that could actually qualify. We have a couple of shows, 3 shows to be exact, before we get to the Olympia run-up. But anybody that's going is going. So I don't imagine that Phil Heath is in contest preparation. That would be a very hard secret to keep because you got to prepare for this and people would be able to see it. And you probably see it in his look. In his look, it doesn't look like he's getting ready for the Olympia. And Kai Green is in a perpetual state of preparation, whether it's for the movies or whether it's for a conversation. But for perspective's sake, 2016, I believe, was the last time we saw him on a stage, which would have been 5 years ago this October. I highly doubt, if I'm a betting man, that we're going to see Kai Green on the stage. So I'm talking about the guys we do know that are going to be on the stage. I mean, if I'm Hadi Chupin, I'm making sure I'm on U.S. soil a good 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks before the Olympia. Yeah. If I'm Big Ramy, I'm making sure that I'm in Arizona
now
with Dennis James. Like I'm leaving nothing to chance in this ever-changing world that we live in. And of course, Rolly Winkler, if he wins over in Alicante, he needs to find his way over to the United States and wind up back at that Arnold Classic and stay here. So those are a couple of Europeans, including William Bonek. He's over in the Netherlands, but I would get here early. So anybody that's traveling outside the country, it's like get to Vegas, man, or come out to Gold's Gym and train, or just get in the United States and get close to the venue. And don't leave it up to the airlines. Don't leave it up to some chance. Remember, Rolly Winkler said he was in Turkey and he caught COVID and they wouldn't let him. So I wouldn't leave that. It's just too big of a weekend, right? It's just too important. It's too big. And of course, I'll be there representing several companies. Of course, I'll be working with the Olympia team, and obviously Mutant will have a platform. The Fashion Blaster will be out there, and Labrada and all the guys. So definitely mark your calendars, October 7th to the 10th. Tickets on sale at MrOlympia.com. Of course, you can follow all the contest coverage from all 3 shows: Texas, what's the other one? The Arnold Classic, and Alicante.
Yep.
You can get all that information, Ron, not just at the Ronline Report and Muscular Development, but you can also get it at digitalmuscle.com.
Yeah. We're all buddies. But it's I talked to Dan briefly at the Tampa show, and I said, I hope the Olympia's staying in Orlando. He said, well, is this a secret? Am I not supposed to?
No. So I want to ask you, why would you hope it stays there?
I like Orlando better than Vegas. Just personally, it's easier to get around. There's not as many distractions. It's just, Vegas is a party town. It's for high rollers. It's it's high end restaurants and clubs and strip clubs, and it's a very adult city. And I'm just too
And you're a
tired.
grandfather. You're an old man.
I'm an old man. Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, not for nothing. I mean, they each offer something different, right? But again, when I was a competitor, I was always saying bright lights, big city, Mike Tyson fights and concerts and everything. I can't wait to get back to Las Vegas. Your guess will be good as mine because you're doing 1 year at a time. We have a pandemic that's ever changing and moving and shaping the world in different directions. It's hard to even make plans 1 month from now, let alone a year from now. But I'll tell you that the team at the Olympia is working overtime to make sure that this one is one for the ages. And it's going to be a very tough decision should they go back to Las Vegas, because just the cost of doing business in Vegas compared to the price of doing business in Florida are two different things. But logistically, you're on the East Coast, so it stands to reason you like Florida, especially, in October, November. Yeah. But there's people out here that are very thirsty to get back to Las Vegas, where they can tie it all into a Raider Nation football game and some gambling, some nice food. And you're talking about the strip clubs. I was talking about the weather and the pools and the different hotels and casinos. There's a whole lot more to Vegas than just Olympia weekend.
Fair enough.
So we're a little spoiled out there.
Yeah, and I know they had just before that whole pandemic erupted, we were all looking forward to being back on the strip after many years at the Orleans, a couple miles off the strip, at this fabulous venue.
Zappos Theater.
Zappos Theater is, that's a major concert venue where all kinds of superstar recording artists have been.
Well, I'll tell you, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we get back there. But what they did last year with that Olympia and that stage and those screens is second to. I heard no complaints. So I mean, I'll go wherever they hold the damn thing. I'm just happy that we have it on the calendar, and hopefully it goes off without a hitch. And I'm like yourself. I'm a fan first. I'm glad to be working with some major companies that are contributing to the success of that weekend. But more importantly, we're going to have some big news. We're going to be launching at the Mr. Olympia under the Mutant brand. So stay tuned for that. And I'm excited to be in the place that I'm at right now. I'm glad to see what you're doing over there at Muscular Development, because you have a choice of getting your bodybuilding news and information, but it's good that people come through these channels to get, the real information, not the fake news. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you, Shawn, when you were 22, 23 years old, could you ever envision being where you are now in life with all these companies and family? And, you were a kid back then when you turned pro. You really were a kid.
Yeah.
You were a smart kid. You had already a business acumen, obviously, above and beyond a lot of your peers who were a little older. But could you have ever pictured this is where you'd be at this stage?
Well, I saw myself working in the industry. I didn't think that somewhere along the way I was going to disconnect and get a 9-to-5 and something would take me away from my first love. I put marriage and children on hold in order to be the best bodybuilder that I could be. And then once that happened, I made sure that it didn't all go to waste by just sailing off into the sunset. I get a thrill watching these guys a lot. I know I'm critical on some of them, but when you competed against the best in the world, you raise the level of expectation and you expect that everybody can do what you did. And unfortunately we have cycles, right? But my delivery can be crass at times and relatively blunt, but typically I have their best interest at heart when I, call a spade a spade. I don't sugarcoat a lot of stuff, but I love watching these guys come up through the ranks. I don't have the proximity of jealousy in my body. I'm not in competition with any of these new guys coming up. And certainly I love getting reunited with the old guys. I'm a fan of Lee Haney and Labrada and Cormier and Wheeler. And we're on the other side of 50 on the back nine. You have a different perspective. The testosterone isn't as aggressive in my body to make me feel a certain way. I'm not a judge. I'm a critic. Right. And I have a right to my opinion. So I put it out there. And then, of course, I let it marinate. And this guy, Phil, just talk to Phil in the bathroom after he's 11th place at the Chicago Pro, a broken person. And then to see what happens 2 weeks later, where he's on the brink of victory and the attitude change and the elation and the improvements. When I saw him, I told you, I told you. And the good thing is, in real time, you can go to send a DM or a message. And in real time, you can get that point that you were trying to make across these athletes. I felt good for him. And so, I like where I'm at. I'm in a very good place. And of course, the art of the deal and the business of bodybuilding is what gets me out of bed.
Yeah, it's you get this you get knocked a lot for saying, I've heard things like Shawn shits on all the bodybuilders of today. He's stuck in the 90s, but that's not accurate. It's kind of like Simon Cowell, the judge. If you ever watch America's Got Talent, if you're an AGT fan,
American Idol. America's Got Talent too, right? He does that.
He's on everything. But Simon is very, very critical of people that warrant the criticism. But when there are people that are very talented, he always stands up and applauds and gives them all the credit in the world. And same thing, they seem to miss when you give praise and props to people, and only hear when you're dogging somebody, saying this guy has high lats, or this guy was butter, mushy or in the glutes or something. But if you guys really pay attention, Shawn doesn't. Shawn gives credit where it's due, and he gives criticism where it's due. That's the job of a true critic. It's not to just sugarcoat and be a cheerleader and say everybody looks great. This is bodybuilding. It's a winner, a second place, third place on down the line. Everybody doesn't look as good as everybody else. They all look good in their own right, standing by themselves. But Shawn and I and all the other people in that front row, we're looking, and the judges in front of us, it's our job to sort things out and point out why this guy's going to win. This guy's not going to win. This guy, here's what he can do to improve. So maybe next time he wins. It's not an easy task, but that's your duty as a journalist, as someone who covers a sport.
Yeah, and I'm mindful of that. I know that if I were up there, I would want to come off that stage and go, what did I do wrong? What do I need to do right? How do I take this loss and go back to the gym and turn it into a win? Right. If all you have is talking points on your good points, on your strengths, what do you do about the weaknesses? Because you're not even aware. So I put it out there, and it is what it is. I'm not apologetic for being hard on somebody that comes out with pink hair and we don't know why he's got pink hair. I'm not hard on a guy that comes out, and is dancing instead of posing. I don't take it back when a guy's breathing through his stomach when he should be breathing through his chest. And of course, if a guy comes out there and he's all water and he's sweating like yesterday and he's shaking like a leaf, I'm not going to ignore that. You come prepared and you get the right kind of feedback. You come unprepared, I'm going to tell you why you were unprepared. Right. That's what they hire me for. I've been doing it 30 plus years, and I don't think I'm going anywhere anytime soon, because I think there's a certain amount of people out there that appreciate the truth. Yeah. And it doesn't come from a place of malice. And when you love what you do, you don't have to live with regret. So if I've criticized you, hopefully you go back to the gym and do something about it.
Yeah. And I'm sure I've had this experience, so you must have had it more than me. People that I've criticized later came up to me. Sometimes it was a year, 2, 3 years later, and said, yes, you know what? You said my chest sucked or whatever. My legs were weak and I was so mad at you, but I went to the gym and now my legs are good, or that criticism, I turned it into what needed. I used it as fuel, and I came back better, and I was a better bodybuilder.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, my mentor that got me involved in the bodybuilding, I came home from Atlanta, Georgia in 1994, second place in the world. I was happy. I was on top of cloud 9. And I showed him the check. I showed him the check, and I was like, the silver medal. They said, don't be happy with that. And so what? You need to train harder. What do you mean? You need to work on your back. What do you mean? You need to work on your calf. You need to do more reps. I didn't get any praise. I got no accolades, nothing like that. And you know what? That was in 94. Years later, I was telling that story on the seminar tour because he wasn't satisfied with me getting second place. I shouldn't be satisfied with getting second place. But when I trained back, I was killing it. When I practiced my posing, I was killing it. I trained harder because here's a guy clearly happy for my success, didn't want me to be comfortable with being second place, but it made me train harder. So when I say certain things, sometimes I put it out there so they can go to the gym and do something about it. And naturally, behind closed doors and sometimes off camera, like Craig Titus, they'll come over and say exactly what you said. Thank you for telling me about my stomach. Thank you for telling me to stop standing relaxed. Thank you for telling me that I need to work on my posing. And these things, they come behind closed doors, but anybody with a keyboard can throw it out there in the universe and say what they want. I'm in a very good place. I'm happy with the things that I do, the people I work with, and I appreciate the athletes that hear the constructive criticism that I try to give them.
Yeah, that's it, man. So we will definitely talk closer to Olympia because things are going to be heating up. That's our Super Bowl. It's what we all live and breathe for the entire year. It leads up to Olympia. So we'll definitely be talking closer to the show. In the meantime, congratulations on the deal with Mutant. That's awesome. I see See the product right behind you there?
Here you go.
Yeah.
You want to try something? Try this.
You throw it through the computer screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the
Yeah,
logo.
man, we're gonna be giving out these at my show. Hold on. Oops. There you go. How'd you like that?
Yeah.
But
Oh, look at that. What's that? A big bag full of product? Holy
yeah,
moly.
it will be full of product. We're
Wow.
gonna give these out at my Shawn Ray Hawaiian Classic on November the 20th.
That's a
So
nice gym bag.
we're going to give out all kind of good stuff. The advantages of working with a company that understands the dynamic of how important things are to athletes that work hard is having an athlete that's actually been there. So I'll be able to leverage my position with them to give that all back to the athletes that work hard. So srhawaiianclassic.com. That's going to be November the 20th. Of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at the Arnold Classic as well.
That's right.
And the Olympia.
It's coming up. It's all coming up. It's going to fly. These weeks are going to go by fast. Guarantee you. Well, enjoy the rest of your summer. Actually, you live in places where it's pretty much always summer anyway. But
California loves.
Yeah, I remember those days. So that's it. Follow Shawn on Instagram at, is it Shawn Ray IFBB Pro?
Correct.
Shawn Ray IFBB Pro.
And at the Mutant Nation.
At the Mutant Nation.
No, at Mutant Nation.
At Mutant Nation. Yeah.
Bam, baby. That's
I got it right. All right, cool. Well,
All right,
everybody, thank you, Shawn Ray, of course. Thanks everyone for watching. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, give the thumbs up, don't give a thumbs down, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time.